The twin suns were setting over the alien world of Vareen, painting the red sand with gold. A small shuttle broke through the clouds, landing near a quiet valley. Inside it sat Ethan Cole, a human man who never expected to return to this planet again. His heart felt heavy. A message had called him here. His old friend, Commander Raltor, was dead. Ethan stepped out, dust swirling around his boots. The air smelled like metal and spice, strange and familiar at the same time. The alien guards waited for him at the gate of a great stone fortress. Their tall figures glowed under the sun's armor shining blue. One of them bowed. "Human Ethan Cole," he said, voice deep and cold. "The council awaits you." "The inheritance ceremony must begin," Ethan frowned. "Inheritance? I came only to pay my respects." The guard said nothing, only turned and led him into the fortress. Inside, the halls were carved with glowing patterns, memories of ancient wars and peace treaties between humans and the Vareen. Ethan's boots echoed on the floor as he walked. His mind was full of questions. Raltor had been his friend, a warrior, a diplomat, a father. But what could he possibly have left for him? At the end of the hall stood a round chamber filled with alien elders. Their faces were hidden by silver masks. In the center burned a blue flame. Next to it stood two alien girls, young, graceful, their skin pale with a faint shimmer, their eyes glowing softly like moonlight. One looked calm and proud. The other looked frightened, clutching her sister's hand. "Ethan Cole," said the elder in the middle. "By the law of Vareen, you are now the inheritor of Raltor's estate, his property, and his bloodline." Ethan froze. "His what?" "His daughters," said the elder. "By law, you must take them under your name. The bond is sacred. The inheritance is complete only through union." The words hit Ethan like thunder. He looked at the two girls again. They couldn't be more than 19 or 20 by human measure. Their shimmering eyes looked back at him, full of confusion and fear. "This must be some kind of mistake," he said quickly. "I'm human. I can't. This law isn't meant for me." But the elder shook his head. "Raltor named you in his will. The law is clear. If you refuse, the daughters will become property of the state." The younger girl gasped, squeezing her sister's arm. The older one lifted her chin. "Our father trusted you, human. He said you would protect us." Ethan felt the weight of the world pressing on his chest. Protect them? From what? And why would Raltor put him in such a situation? He remembered the alien commander's voice, deep and kind, years ago during their missions together. "If anything happens to me, Ethan, promise me you'll look after my girls." They must live free. At the time, Ethan had laughed it off. He never thought it would come true. Now the chamber grew silent. The blue fire flickered, throwing long shadows on the walls. The council's eyes watched him closely, judging every breath. Ethan's throat felt dry. "I won't claim them as property," he said finally, voice firm. "But I won't abandon them either. I'll take responsibility until the truth of this law is clear." The elders exchanged whispers. Then the lead elder nodded. "So be it. The bond begins tonight." Ethan didn't like the sound of that, but before he could speak again, the two sisters stepped forward. The older one bowed slightly. "My name is Lyra, daughter of Raltor. This is my sister Sarah. You are welcome in our home." "Human." Ethan nodded awkwardly. "Ethan Cole, I don't know what your father expected of me, but I'll do my best." Lyra studied him with calm curiosity, while Sarah avoided his eyes. She looked like she wanted to run away. The council dismissed them, and the guards led Ethan to the guest chambers. As the night fell, Vareen's twin moons rose above the fortress. The halls were quiet now. Ethan sat by the window, staring at the glowing horizon. His thoughts were a storm. Why would Raltor tie his daughter's fate to him? What danger were they in? A soft knock came at the door. When he opened it, he saw Lyra standing there, her silver hair glowing faintly in the moonlight. She looked calm, but her eyes held sadness. "My father believed in you," she said quietly. "He said humans are different, that they care for others even when the law doesn't force them." Ethan nodded. "He was a good man. I owe him everything." Lyra's gaze drifted to the stars. "Tomorrow the council will confirm the bond. Once it's done, we will be safe, but I think someone doesn't want that to happen." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "My father's death, it wasn't an accident." The words hit Ethan like ice. Before he could reply, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're watching us," she whispered, backing away. "Be careful, Ethan Cole. On Vareen, not all laws protect the living." The door closed softly behind her. Ethan stood in the silence, staring at the shadows outside his window. Somewhere in the dark, a pair of glowing eyes watched the fortress from the cliffs. The wind howled through the valley like a warning, and Ethan realized his friend's death was only the beginning. The next morning, the fortress of Raltor came alive under the pale light of dawn. The red sands shimmered as the suns rose again over Vareen. But inside the air was heavy with tension. Ethan Cole barely slept. The words of Lyra, the eldest daughter, echoed in his head. My father's death, it wasn't an accident. He stood near the great window watching alien birds sweep over the cliffs. His human mind tried to understand the laws of this world. Everything here felt strange, old traditions mixed with quiet fear. The door opened softly. Lyra entered, dressed in silver robes that reflected the morning glow. Her younger sister Sarah followed behind, her expression cold and wary. Ethan nodded at them both. Good morning, he said, trying to sound calm. Lyra bowed her head slightly. The council wishes to see you. The final binding of inheritance begins today. Ethan frowned. Binding? What does that mean exactly? Sarah crossed her arms. It means we're no longer people. We become names in your record, just so the council can say the inheritance is complete. Her tone was sharp, her eyes full of defiance. Ethan sighed. I don't want that. I'm not here to own anyone. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. That's why Father trusted you. But the law is older than any of us. If you reject it, they will take us away and give us to someone else. Ethan's heart sank. The thought of these two girls, his friend's daughters, being treated as property made his blood boil. But what choice did he have? He didn't know the rules, the politics, or the threats hidden behind these ceremonies. Moments later, 2 armored guards arrived. It is time, one said. They led them through long stone corridors filled with glowing symbols. The council chamber loomed ahead, vast and cold. Alien elders stood in a circle, their silver masks catching the light. In the center, a crystal sphere floated, pulsing with blue energy. The elder spoke in a deep, calm voice. Ethan Cole, you stand before us to accept full inheritance of Raltor's legacy. You have agreed to take his bloodline under your name. Do you still accept this duty? Ethan glanced at Lyra and Sarah. Their faces showed both fear and trust. He took a slow breath. I accept responsibility for them, but I will not treat them as property. I will protect them as my friend would have wanted. The chamber fell silent. The elder's glowing eyes studied him through the mask. Then he said, so be it. The bond is sealed by law. Their lives are yours to guard. The crystal sphere flashed with light, and Ethan felt a strange warmth pass through him, a pulse of alien energy connecting him to the sisters. The ritual was complete, but as soon as the light faded, a sharp voice echoed from the back of the hall. This is a mistake. Everyone turned. A tall alien man in dark robes stepped forward. His eyes burned with anger. Raltor's will was false. The human has no right to his bloodline. This breaks every sacred rule, the council murmured. Ethan studied the man. His posture was full of pride and hate. Lyra's face turned pale. That's Counselor Dren, she whispered. He wanted Father's seat on the council. Dren's gaze locked onto Ethan. You don't belong here, human. Leave now, or suffer the same fate as your friend. Ethan stepped forward calmly. Are you threatening me? Dren smiled. Not a threat, a promise. Before Ethan could reply, the elder struck his staff on the floor. Enough, the law has spoken. The bond is sealed. Leave Dren before you disgrace the council. The man glared at them one last time, then turned and walked out of the chamber. But his words lingered like poison in the air. When the ceremony ended, Ethan followed Lyra and Sarah back to the living quarters. The moment the door closed, Sarah burst out, You shouldn't have accepted it. Now you're trapped with us, and so are we. Ethan shook his head. If I didn't, someone worse would have taken you. She turned away, frustrated. Lyra placed a gentle hand on her sister's shoulder. He's right, Sarah. At least now we have someone who will protect us. Ethan walked to the window again. Far in the distance, dark smoke rose near the mountains. His instincts flared. Something was wrong, Lyra, he said quietly. You said your father's death wasn't an accident. Do you think Dren was involved? She nodded slowly. Father didn't trust him. He believed Dren wanted to end the peace with humans. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we'll find proof. I won't let your father's legacy die. As night fell, the fortress grew silent again. But this time, Ethan felt eyes watching him from beyond the walls. In the shadows outside, a small drone hovered near the window, its red light blinking softly before vanishing into the dark. The bond had been sealed, and the hunt had already begun. Night fell quietly over the alien world of Vareen, but the calm was only an illusion. Inside Raltor's old fortress, Ethan Cole couldn't sleep. He sat beside the window, staring at the dark horizon. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every sound felt like a whisper meant for him. The memory of Counselor Dren's words echoed in his head. Leave now, or suffer the same fate as your friend. Ethan had heard threats before, but this one felt different. It wasn't just politics. It was personal. He turned as the door slid open behind him. Lyra, dressed in a long silver robe, stepped into the dim light. Her calm expression couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. You haven't rested, she said softly. Can't, Ethan replied. Something's wrong here. Someone's watching this place. Lyra nodded slowly. Father used to say the same. Before he died, he told me if anything happened, I should trust only one person. You. Ethan frowned. Then your father knew he was in danger. Yes, she whispered. But no one believed him. He said someone from the council wanted to destroy the peace between our worlds. Now that you're here, they will come for you too. Before Ethan could answer, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the air. Lyra stiffened. That sound, it's not the fortress systems. Ethan rushed to the console and scanned the sensors. His eyes widened. Something's outside. Small, fast, like drones. He grabbed his pulse weapon and motioned to Lyra. Wake your sister now. Moments later, Sarah burst into the room, half asleep, clutching a glowing blade. What's happening? Trouble, Ethan said simply. Get to cover. Through the window, they saw the night come alive. Red lights gliding through the darkness, circling the fortress. The drones moved like predators, scanning the walls. Then, without warning, one fired. A bright blue blast hit the side of the fortress, shaking the ground. The alarm screamed. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra grabbed Ethan's arm. They're breaching the lower gates. Move, Ethan shouted. He led the sisters down the narrow hallway, their footsteps echoing in the stone corridors. The fortress lights flickered between red and black, throwing their shadows against the walls. They reached the command room. Ethan sealed the doors and powered the defense grid. The screen showed chaos outside. Dark figures in cloaks storming through the gates, followed by flying drones. They're soldiers, Ethan said, voice sharp. Not bandits. This is organized. Sarah's voice trembled. Who would attack us? Ethan didn't look up. Someone who doesn't want this inheritance to stand. He tapped the console and activated the old defense turrets. Blue fire shot across the courtyard, destroying 2 drones. But more replaced them faster and stronger. Lyra turned toward him. You can't win from here. The fortress isn't built for war anymore. Ethan gave a grim smile. Then we don't fight here. We run. He grabbed 2 survival packs from the wall and tossed one to each sister. There's a hidden tunnel under the west wing. It leads through the valley. We'll regroup outside and figure out who's behind this. The ground shook again. A second explosion tore through the main gate. Dust and smoke filled the air. The fortress trembled. Sarah coughed, eyes wide with fear. They're inside! Ethan took the lead, guiding them through narrow passages lit by dim blue crystals. The air grew colder as they descended deeper underground. The tunnel smelled of oil and old metal. After several minutes, they reached a heavy sealed door. Lyra placed her hand on a glowing panel, whispering an ancient phrase. The door slid open, revealing a dark passage leading into the desert night. They stepped outside. The wind howled across the sand, carrying the smell of smoke. Behind them, the fortress of Raltor burned like a dying star. Sarah stared at the flames, tears in her eyes. Everything's gone. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Not everything. You're alive. That means we still have a chance. Lyra turned toward the horizon, her eyes reflecting the twin moons. Where do we go now? Ethan looked out at the endless dunes. Your father left messages for me years ago. Coordinates, backup caches. He must have known this would happen. We find them. The wind shifted again. From far away, faint red lights blinked. The pursuers hadn't given up. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. They want to finish what they started. But they've just made one mistake. Lyra frowned. What mistake? Ethan's eyes glowed with determination. They came after my friend's family. The three of them disappeared into the desert shadows as the fortress behind them collapsed. Its final explosion lighting the night like dawn. The hunt had begun, and Ethan Cole was no longer just a guest on Vareen. He was part of its war. The cold wind of the Vareen desert hit Ethan Cole's face like a slap as he led Lyra and Sarah through the endless dunes. 2 moons hung above them, casting silver light over the red sand. Behind them, Raltor's fortress burned like a beacon, its towers collapsing one by one. They had been walking for hours, their boots sinking into the shifting sand. The night was quiet except for the faint hum of distant engines, their pursuers. Every few minutes, Ethan looked back, scanning the horizon for red lights. Keep low, he whispered. If the drones spot us, we won't survive another fight. Sarah stumbled slightly, clutching her side. The long journey and the shock had drained her energy. How much farther? She asked weakly. Ethan checked a small device on his wrist, an old military tracker. A faint blinking dot showed a direction east. 10 kilometers, he said. There's an old outpost your father once showed me. If it's still there, we'll rest. Lyra walked beside him, her face calm but eyes tired. Father used to go there when he needed to think. He said humans made him believe in peace again. Ethan nodded, his expression hardening. Then I'll make sure his belief wasn't wasted. The wind grew stronger, throwing waves of sand against them. Sarah covered her face with her scarf. This planet hates us, she muttered. Ethan smiled faintly despite the exhaustion. No, it just tests who's strong enough to survive it. Hours passed. The stars began to fade as dawn approached. The horizon glowed with faint orange light. Finally, Lyra pointed ahead. There, do you see it? Through the dust, a shape appeared. A cluster of ancient metal structures half buried in sand. The walls were rusted, but the symbol of the old Vareen military still shone faintly. Ethan scanned the area with his weapon ready. No heat signatures. Looks abandoned, they entered cautiously. The outpost was silent, filled with old machinery and cracked screens. A soft hum came from a power cell still running after all these years. Ethan found a small control room and activated the main console. The lights flickered on. Sarah sighed with relief and collapsed onto a bench. Finally, some air that doesn't taste like sand. Lyra smiled faintly and began tending to a small wound on her arm. Ethan looked around, searching the shelves until he found a sealed crate. Inside were ration packs, medical kits, and an old hollow drive marked with Raltor's symbol. Ethan's pulse quickened. Your father left something here. He placed the drive into the console. A faint blue glow filled the room as a hologram appeared. Commander Raltor, tall and proud, his eyes full of warmth. The sisters gasped softly. My daughters, the hologram said, voice calm but heavy with sadness. If you are seeing this, it means my time has ended, and the peace I fought for is in danger. The council is no longer what it once was. Greed and fear rule them now. There is one man I trust, Ethan Cole. Protect him as he will protect you. The image flickered, showing symbols and maps. Within my bloodline lies a code, a genetic key that controls the old defense systems of Vareen. If it falls into the wrong hands, both our worlds will burn. You must guard it, together. Then Raltor's final words echoed. The bond between species must be more than law. It must be trust, loyalty, and unity. Only through that will the future survive. The hologram faded. Silence filled the room. Lyra wiped her tears. He knew they would come for us. Ethan clenched his fists. He also knew we'd fight back. Suddenly, the console beeped sharply, a red signal flashing. Ethan leaned closer. His expression changed. They found us. Sarah jumped up, panic in her eyes. How? We came through the dunes. Ethan grabbed his rifle and scanned the radar. They're tracking your bloodlines, biosignatures. Dren must have activated the old military scanners. Outside, a deep roar filled the air. The ground shook as 3 armored crafts descended from the clouds, kicking up waves of sand. Ethan turned to the sisters. Get into the back tunnels. I'll hold them off long enough for you to reach the canyon. Lyra grabbed his arm. You'll die! He looked at her, calm and steady. Not today. Your father didn't raise me to quit. Sarah stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Then we fight with you. Ethan hesitated, but when he saw the fire in their eyes, he realized they weren't the same frightened girls anymore. Together, they set traps, powered the turrets, and took positions by the windows. The desert wind howled through the ruins as the first dropships landed. Ethan whispered, "This is it. Stay sharp." And as the enemy soldiers stepped into the rising dawn, the three of them opened fire, human and alien side by side, fulfilling Raltor's final wish in the heart of the wastes. Smoke filled the ruined outpost. The sound of gunfire had faded, leaving only the hum of broken machines and the soft crackle of fire. Ethan Cole leaned against a metal wall, breathing heavily, his weapon still warm in his hands. Around him lay scattered pieces of destroyed drones and enemy armor. The air smelled of burning metal and dust. Lyra and Sarah moved through the debris, checking the perimeter. Their faces were covered in sand and soot, but their eyes burned with fierce determination. They had survived the attack, barely. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. They won't stop. Dren knows we're alive. He'll send more. Lyra looked at the smoking horizon. Then we can't stay here. But before we go, we need to understand what Father meant. Sarah approached the console again where Raltor's hologram had appeared before. There must be more data hidden inside the system. Ethan nodded. Let's find it. They worked together, clearing debris from the control table. The screen flickered, then came to life again, revealing encrypted files. Ethan typed quickly, using old human decoding software mixed with Vareen code. The system finally unlocked, and Raltor's hologram appeared once more. This time it looked older, more serious. His deep voice filled the room. If you are watching this, my fears have come true. The council has been corrupted. Counselor Dren and his allies plan to use the ancient weapon, the Sunbreaker, to wipe out all human colonies near Vareen. They believe only through fear can peace be controlled. They are wrong. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. Sunbreaker? Lyra nodded grimly. It's real. A weapon from the First Vareen War. It can destroy a planet's surface. Raltor's voice continued. The key to the Sunbreaker is hidden in my bloodline. Only my daughters carry the final genetic code to activate or destroy it. That is why Dren will hunt you. But you must not run forever. You must fight back and unite both worlds before war begins again. The hologram turned slightly, looking straight at Ethan. Ethan Cole, I trusted you with my life. Now I trust you with theirs. Protect them and protect the bond between our people. You were always more than a soldier. You were my brother. The message ended. The room fell silent. The sisters stood still, their eyes filled with tears. Sarah whispered, He called you brother. Ethan lowered his head. He saved my life once. I guess it's time to return the favor. Lyra placed her hand on the console. Then we must finish his mission. We have to stop Dren from using the Sunbreaker. Ethan's jaw tightened. Do you know where it is? Lyra shook her head. Only a few ever did. But Father said the key is inside our blood. Maybe he left a way to find it. Ethan opened the last file on the console. A map appeared, showing a path across the desert toward a region marked the Hollow Ridge. Underneath the coordinates, a single message glowed. The Vault of Truth. Sarah frowned. That's deep inside Dren's territory. We'll never get close without being seen. Ethan smiled slightly. Then we won't go as enemies. We'll go as ghosts. He packed what little ammo and food they had left, then helped the sisters prepare for the journey. The suns were setting again when they left the outpost, their figures small against the vast red desert. As they walked, the sky turned violet. Strange crystal plants shimmered in the distance. Ethan walked ahead, keeping his rifle ready. Behind him, Sarah whispered to Lyra, He's not like the others, is he? Lyra smiled softly. No, Father said humans were unpredictable. I think he meant they never give up. Hours later, as night fell, they reached the edge of a canyon. Wind howled through the cliffs, carrying echoes like whispers. Ethan checked the tracker again. The vault should be below us. Lyra looked around nervously. This place feels alive. Ethan pointed his flashlight downward. A massive door lay buried under the sand, covered in alien runes that glowed faintly as the light touched them. Sarah knelt beside it. I can feel something. Like it's reacting to us. Ethan motioned for Lyra. Try placing your hand here. She hesitated, then pressed her palm to the symbols. A pulse of blue light rippled through the ground. The runes came alive, spreading outward like veins of fire. The giant door groaned, dust falling from its cracks. Ethan stepped back, eyes wide. You just unlocked something ancient. The door slowly opened, revealing a tunnel glowing with golden light. A deep mechanical voice echoed from inside. Welcome, heirs of Raltor. The vault awaits. Lyra turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. This is what Father wanted us to find. Ethan raised his weapon and nodded. Then let's see what truth your father left behind. As they stepped into the glowing tunnel, the heavy door closed behind them. Far above, in the dark skies of Vareen, Counselor Dren watched from his ship's command deck, his cold eyes fixed on their location. Run as far as you want, human, he whispered. You're only walking into my hands. The golden tunnel stretched deep beneath the surface of Vareen, glowing faintly as Ethan, Cole, Lyra, and Sarah descended into the unknown. The air was warm, humming with old power. Strange lights danced across the walls like living fire. Ethan held his rifle close, his senses alert. This place isn't natural, he muttered. Lyra's eyes followed the glowing symbols. It's the heart of the old Vareen network. My father once said the vault was built before any known history, by those who first tried to unite our races. Sarah shivered. Then why does it feel like it's watching us? They reached a massive circular chamber. In the center stood a crystal pillar, pulsing with golden light. Around it floated ancient machines, silent, waiting. As they stepped closer, the pillar came alive, projecting a towering hologram of Raltor once again. But this time he wasn't calm, he was commanding. My daughters, and my brother Ethan. His voice thundered, echoing across the chamber. If you've reached this place, it means the enemy has moved. The Sunbreaker must never be activated. Within this vault lies the control core. It recognizes only your blood and your will. The hologram flickered, showing the map of the planet, then a glowing point deep beneath the capital city, Dren's fortress. If he reaches the control chamber before you destroy this core, he will have the weapon. Do not hesitate. End it. The message ended abruptly, replaced by a warning signal. Red lights flashed through the vault. A cold robotic voice announced, "Unauthorized entry detected." Ethan spun around. "We've been followed!" The ground shook violently as explosions echoed from the tunnel above. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Through the entrance stormed dozens of armored soldiers, Dren's troops, their weapons blazing. "Cover!" Ethan shouted. He dove behind a column as plasma bolts scorched the air. Lyra grabbed a fallen blaster while Sarah hacked into a nearby console, activating defense drones. The chamber lit up with chaos. Laser fire, smoke, and the roar of machinery awakening after centuries of silence. Ethan fired with precision, his human training showing. 2 soldiers fell. "Sarah, close the outer gate," he yelled. "I'm trying." She shouted back, sparks flying from the console. "These systems are ancient." Lyra moved beside Ethan, aiming her weapon. Her hands trembled at first, but when she saw a soldier aiming at her sister, she fired, hitting the mark cleanly. Ethan glanced at her, impressed. "Nice shot." Lyra gave a small, fierce smile. "Father taught me well, but their victory was short-lived." The massive gates behind the soldiers opened again, and Counselor Dren entered, cloaked in black armor, his face half covered by a breathing mask. His cold eyes glowed under the helmet. "Well," he said, his voice calm and cruel, the human pet in his little prizes. Raltor was always sentimental. Ethan stepped forward, weapon raised. "You killed him, didn't you?" Dren smirked. "He stood in the way of power, just like you will." He raised his hand, energy surging from his armor, and blasted Ethan across the chamber. Ethan hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his ribs. Lyra screamed, rushing to his side. Dren turned to the sisters. "Give me the access codes and I'll make your deaths quick. Refuse, and I'll erase both your worlds." Sarah's eyes filled with fury. "You'll never touch our father's legacy." She slammed her hand on the console. The vault roared to life. Golden energy surged through the floor, surrounding the crystal pillar. The ground split open, revealing the Sunbreaker control core, a sphere of light pulsing like a heart. Dren's soldiers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. Dren himself laughed darkly. "So it's true. The power of the ancients, right in front of me." Ethan, groaning in pain, forced himself to his feet. "Not for you." He drew his last grenade, activated it, and hurled it at Dren's feet. The explosion knocked the counselor back, tearing pieces of his armor. Lyra and Sarah grabbed Ethan's arms, pulling him toward the pillar. "Lyra!" Ethan shouted over the chaos. You can end this. Your father said it, destroy the core. Lyra hesitated, tears streaming down her face. If I destroy it, our people lose everything. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then save what's worth saving. Lyra took a deep breath. She pressed both hands against the crystal pillar, whispering an ancient phrase only her blood could unlock. The light inside the core grew brighter than blinding. Dren screamed, "No!" as he rushed forward, but the energy burst outward, a wave of gold and white swallowing the entire chamber. When the light faded, the vault was silent again. The soldiers were gone. The machines lay still. In the center of the ruin, Lyra, Sarah, and Ethan stood surrounded by dust and quiet light. Ethan fell to one knee, exhausted but alive. "It's over," he whispered. Lyra looked around, her voice shaking. "We destroyed it." Sarah nodded slowly. "We also destroyed their weapon." Ethan managed a weak smile. "Then maybe your father can rest." Far above them, the capital sky shimmered as the Sunbreaker's energy faded into nothing. The planet was safe, for now. But as they walked out of the collapsing vault, Ethan looked up at the twin suns rising again. He knew this was only the beginning, because when you break chains, others always try to forge new ones. The dawn over Vareen was unlike any other. Twin suns rose together, their light spilling across the red horizon, painting the broken desert in shades of gold. The war had ended. The Sunbreaker was gone, but the cost of peace still hung heavy in the air. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the shattered valley, looking out over the silent ruins of the vault. His clothes were torn, his weapon burned out, and his eyes carried the weight of everything he'd lost and saved. Beside him stood Lyra and Sarah, their silver hair catching the sunlight like strands of flame. The wind blew softly, carrying with it the faint hum of the planet healing. Sarah broke the silence first. "So, this is it? We destroyed our father's greatest secret." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, you protected it. You protected what he stood for." Lyra looked down at her hands, still faintly glowing from the energy she had released. "I felt him. When the core shattered, for a moment it was like he was here with us." Ethan gave a faint smile. "He's not gone. Men like your father never really die. They just become part of the story." They turned to see the distant city, Vareth Prime, the heart of the Vareen world, rising under the suns. Columns of smoke curled into the sky. The council had fallen into chaos after the explosion, rumors spreading fast that Councillor Dren was dead and the weapon lost forever. Sarah's voice trembled. "The council will blame us for this." Ethan sighed. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll see what your father tried to show them, that humans and Vareen don't need war to prove strength." Lyra looked at him quietly, then said, "We can't run anymore. We have to face them." Ethan nodded. "Then we go to the capital. Together." 3 days later, the grand chambers of the Vareen Council were filled with tension. Elders in silver robes sat in silence as the doors opened and Ethan walked in, flanked by Lyra and Sarah. Their appearance caused a wave of murmurs. "Human Ethan Cole," one elder spoke sharply. "You trespassed sacred grounds, destroyed the vault, and defied the council's order. What defense do you have?" Ethan met their cold stares. "You call it defiance. I call it survival. The vault wasn't a weapon. It was a trap that would have ended both our species. I stopped it just like Raltor wanted." Another elder slammed his staff. "You broke the law of inheritance. The bond was meant to unite, not destroy." Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was clear, strong. "The law you speak of is broken. It made us property instead of people. My father believed unity was about choice, not chains." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward her. Even the eldest members, who rarely spoke, leaned forward. Sarah added, "If unity means ownership, then peace is only a word. We didn't come here to obey old rules, we came to make new ones." Ethan looked around the room, his voice steady. "Your laws said a human couldn't be family. Your council said friendship between species was weakness. But look at us. We fought together, bled together, and saved this world together. If that's weakness, then maybe you've forgotten what strength looks like." Whispers filled the hall. Some of the younger counselors exchanged uncertain glances. The oldest elder stood at last. His mask shimmered in the light. "Raltor once dreamed of this moment," he said softly. "Perhaps it is time we listen." The chamber doors opened again and crowds of citizens began to gather. Humans, traders, soldiers, and alien civilians filled the halls. News of the battle had spread across the planet. They cheered as Lyra raised her hand. From this day, she declared, no daughter, no human, no being will belong to another. We stand as one, by choice, not by command. The sound of applause grew until it filled the entire hall. The new law of unity was passed that very day, rewritten to stand for freedom, not possession. That evening, under the open sky, Ethan sat outside the rebuilt fortress, now peaceful and bright. The stars shimmered like a million small fires. Lyra approached him quietly, holding a small crystal in her hand. "What's that?" he asked. "It's all that's left of the vault's core," she said softly. "It doesn't hold power anymore, only memory." Ethan smiled faintly. "Keep it. It's a reminder of what we fought for." She looked at him for a long time, the silence warm between them. "Father would have been proud of you." Ethan turned his gaze to the stars. He believed in something bigger than himself. "I just followed his path." Sarah walked over, grinning slightly. "And now what, human? You're free to leave Vareen. You could go back to your world." Ethan chuckled. "Maybe I could. But somehow, it doesn't feel like home anymore." Lyra smiled gently. "Then stay. There's still work to do. The bond between our worlds is fragile, and someone has to protect it." Ethan looked at the two sisters, then at the rising twin moons above them. He nodded. "Then we start rebuilding, together." The wind carried their laughter through the desert night, soft and hopeful. As the stars brightened, the once divided world of Vareen began a new era, an era born not from law or fear, but from trust, sacrifice, and unity. And far beyond the horizon, among the endless stars, legends would speak of the human who inherited an alien family and saved two worlds from destruction.